So medicine is one of the most competitive degrees, at least in the UK, probably a similar case in other countries as well. So any of these requirements we're talking about today, I think you're definitely going to need to look at having. So the first thing, and probably the big one for most people to consider, is grades. Now, firstly, you've got to have your GCSE grades, so you've got to have maths, English and science. And then basically you need to have as many GCSEs as possible at a grade 7 or an 8, or even 9s in old terms, A's and A stars basically. For your A-level requirements, chemistry is an absolute must for every single medical university for going straight into a medical degree. If you're eligible for whatever reason for foundation years and such, they all have very specific requirements, so you have to look into which university. But to go straight into the degree, you've got to have chemistry. Your second subject should really be looking at having biology. Now, I think there's a very small amount of situations where you could have another science instead, but ideally to give yourself the best chance, you want chemistry and biology. Then for your third subject, some people might choose to do another science, so you might choose to do biology, chemistry, physics, for example, or biology, chemistry and maths. Now, as far as I'm aware, Cambridge is the only university that specifically says that they want your third subject to be a science subject. So if you feel like, yes, confidently, I could get 3 A's, no problem, by doing biology, chemistry and maths, then if you're happy to do that, go for it. But if you feel like I'm doing biology and chemistry and I'm not sure I can get an A if I was to do a third science, then it is perfectly okay to choose another academic subject, for example, something like maybe psychology or history or something like that. So not you wouldn't choose business studies or drama or dance, that's definite no-no, but a third academic subject that you can get an A in, if you feel you can't do a third science with biology and chemistry already, is perfectly okay. Now, other qualifications that aren't A-levels, such as BTECs, access courses and things like that, generally aren't accepted for going straight into medical degrees. So if you are looking at doing one of those qualifications, or you're going into it later, you might need to look at other options like graduate entry medicine, foundation years, etc. But this is mainly covering going straight into a medical degree. Now, the other thing that is very important you need to consider is work experience. Now, ideally, if you can shadow a doctor at a hospital, shadow a GP, that would be ideal. Obviously, some people aren't going to be as fortunate to get that. A lot of hospitals are going to want you to be sort of maybe 17 or 18 already. They might want a DBS check if you want to, obviously for vulnerable people, if you're going to a hospital, they might want you to meet certain requirements and maybe you might not be able to. So that would be ideal. Of course, then there's other things like if you can get a job as a healthcare assistant, again, that can be a bit restrictive age-wise, but that's another thing to be looking at. If not, then any volunteering at all that's health related, whether that's in care homes, sort of helping elderly people, children, any sort of vulnerable group of people that you can do any volunteering with is great. And any sort of experience at all that you can get, such as part-time jobs, to show that you've got good communication skills, you work well on a team, etc. You're basically aiming to build up as much different experience as you can that's relevant. And then the next thing that you also have to consider, as I say, there's certain qualities they'll be looking for. So they'll want, in your personal statement, you've got to show that you know what you're getting into with being a doctor. So you've got to talk about that experience, you've got to talk about the information that you've learned from that experience. You've also got to show that you can handle a challenge, so that you've got to show that you know how challenging the job of a doctor can be, how it can be difficult. You've got to show you've got this emotional intelligence, that you're caring, that you're empathetic, so you've got to be showing all these different skills. You think you're getting those grades, or you've got those grades and you've got that work experience, and you put your application in the personal statement. Also, just before you have the application deadline, so the dates vary, they can be sort of a couple of months either way, you'll also need to do admissions tests. Now, there are 2 that UK uses. There's the UK, it used to be called the UK CAT, but they've taken the K out of it, so it's a UCAT now, admissions test, which a lot of universities take, but there's also the BMAT test. So you'll need to be looking at doing at least one of those before you apply. Many people might choose, depending on their strengths, to do both, and then they can apply to a couple of universities to take one of them, and say 3 that take the other if that matches what grades and things they've got a bit better. So doing both is something that some people can certainly consider doing. And then the other things, then after all that, you'll also definitely going to have interviews. Every medical degree will have an interview, which they can vary, but they're all looking at the same things and say the qualities are listed. Then lastly, the things you'll also need to consider are you'll have a occupational health sort of check that you'll have to do for your starter degree. So first thing, that is mainly make sure you've got all your vaccines like your MMR, you might need to have hepatitis B, that sort of thing done, but it's also looking at whether you can do the job safely. So if you have a condition that is manageable and that they can make adjustments for, does not mean that you can't be a doctor. It's best to start the discussions early if you do have something that might affect the course, just so they can get things in place and to make sure you're not disappointed if there is, and if it is a rare case where it would stop you doing it. But don't be afraid to share that, and they will look to work with you best they can with that. And then the last thing, you'll have to get a DBS check done as well. As with sort of anything working with vulnerable people, you've got to have one of those. So yes, that's all the requirements you'll be needing for a medicine degree. I know it sounds a bit overwhelming, but see it as a tick list of things you've got to work through. And if you've got any questions at all, then please pop them down in the comments below. Or if you're thinking of studying medicine and you've got any concerns or anything like that, please leave a comment and I'll be happy to help you as best as we can. And also, if you're thinking about other subjects, check out the other videos in this series. And if you are interested in seeing other videos, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks, bye!